everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm the City Witch. Today's video, I'm going to be doing a little collection of videos actually, where I'm going to talk to you about extra embellishments upon your sigils. So I have here 3 sigils, and I worked on these a couple of videos back, and that video was called Getting Creative with Sigils, and I'll link it in the description for you guys who haven't watched it. And we got really creative in that video where I showed you some of the ways that I break down statements and words of power and turn them into a sigil. So these 2 here were words of power. So this one was karma and this one was love. And I broke down those words and turned them into custom sigils. And then with this one was a statement of intent about cleansing the body and removing toxic energies. And this was a custom design for a client. So this one is all about cleansing and removing negative energy. So the idea was that she would carve this into soap or draw it using her fingers or her wand or her atham over a sponge that she would use to scrub her body with and charge the sigil into that. Now this is great for if you want to carve it into soap and bless your salt for cleansing purposes and use it during ritual cleansing baths. And that was the intent. So we broke that down and turned it into a sigil. Now, on all of these sigils, you can see extra embellishments. So I could have stopped here, but instead I created a spiral. I've done the same throughout all of the tails, except for this one where I added a diamond. So you might be thinking, well, what do spirals mean? What does the diamond mean? What extra energies and symbols do they represent? And how does it coincide with that particular sigil? Are the energies correct? So I noticed when I watch a lot of videos online for sigils that people will just add on anything on the end. And while it might look pretty, does it have a purpose? And do they actually know what that symbol means and how it layers the sigil with further energies? And my thinking along this is that perhaps not. So I want to educate you guys and give you some positive reinforcement for the different kinds of symbols that you can add onto your sigils which add further intent. So we're going to be looking at what do X's mean, what do circles mean, what do triangles mean, and plus signs or crosses, what do arrows mean, what do slashes mean, what do diamonds mean, what do squares and triangles and rectangles mean, and how do I make the choice that matches my sigil? So that's what we're going to be looking at. But as there is quite a lot to get through, and I'm going to cover as much as I can, I'm going to break this up in several videos, guys. So these are going to be in short intervals where you'll get so many at a time, and you'll be able to decide which ones you want to use, make some notes and add it to your book of shadows. And then when you come to design your sigils and you come to figure out what you want to put on the end, or if you've got some extra letters to work with, what you want to turn it into in order to add extra layered energies into your sigils. So I'd hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and let's get started. So the first symbol we're going to start with is the cross. Now there's a number of different ways that you can perceive this symbol. First of all, commonly you might go like that. Then you also might think about the inverted cross, and then you also might think of an equal cross. So all of these are symbols that can be incorporated into your sigil to layer up further energies. But what does this mean? Well, first of all, if you're looking at this here, especially this one, okay, this is a sign of faith, trust. It can be a sign of discipline as well, because it takes great discipline to be loyal to your faith and follow all the commandments or all of the rules in whatever faith or religion you follow. So those are certain energies that can come with this. This can also represent a meeting place of energies, ideas, or people because it intersects. And it can also represent balance when you think about this one. So obviously this is equal, so equality, balance. It can represent, eradicating imbalances or imperfections in something. And it can also represent an increase. So this is also, in maths, the symbol for plus. So 1 + 1 = 2, okay? So you're increasing something. So this can represent increase, making something greater than itself, or combining 2 energies to make something different, okay? So all of those energies can come with the symbol of the cross. The next symbol we're going to talk about is the chevron. So the chevron, these are some of the different chevrons that you may come across, okay? And you may even come across, oh, sorry, done that the wrong way. Ones like that, Okay, so here, this is your typical ones that you see. And chevrons are a V shape that represent something that is either greater than or lesser than, okay? So pointing in is lesser than, so that would be this. And pointing out is greater than, where you're expanding or increasing something. So these both point out and that points in, okay? So this can also represent energies of capturing something or dispelling something. So if you're drawing in, you could be capturing or trapping energies in the center here. If you are seeing a symbol like this, it could be dispel or dispersing energy out, okay? So that's some of the energies that these come with. Now, in some of the other sigils here, so obviously we had these, so you could say that these are chevrons on the end, but as I've turned them to arrows, I would say these are symbols of arrows, and then arrows mean something slightly different. But had I have just, instead of doing that, had I have just drawn that and no line, that would be something greater than, where I'm increasing something, okay? And that would be the wrong symbol for cleansing. So I don't want to increase the negative energies that are present. I want to push them out and dispel them, which is why I've used arrows instead, because arrows are about direction and they're about focus and all these other energies. But I'll get to arrows, to be honest, guys. But yeah, so I didn't want to use a chevron there because it doesn't make sense. I chose to use an arrow and there was reasons for that. Okay, the next symbol we're going to talk about is the X. So the X obviously looks like this. So typical things that come to mind here is X marks the spot, a symbol of multiplication, okay? So again, something that can increase energies. It's also a symbol that can be used in place of a signature, and it can be used as a seal of acceptance or approval, you know, or it can be something that you put on a contract to say you agree or you've bound yourself into that, okay? So that's all energies that can come with an X. The other thing to consider is it can represent a kiss. So in the state of XOXO, really want to say gossip girl on the end of that, you know, XOXO, gossip girl. But XOXO is hugs and kisses. So X's being the kisses and the O's being hugs. So it can represent positive, loving energy. It can also represent something that is blocked or forbidden to you. So think about when you're driving and you see, you know, that symbol, it's telling you can't come in. This is a no entry zone. It's forbidden or it's locked, blocked to you, okay? So it can represent a blockage. The other thing to consider in hoodoo practices is the X can represent crossing magic, so curses and hexes and manipulation magic, okay? So it can represent darker forces. So if you wanted to design a darker sigil, and hey, no judgment from me, guys, I'm just giving you the info. You do what you like with it. But if you are designing something darker, perhaps an X is the perfect symbol you want to incorporate to layer your sigil further, saying forbidden, dark energies, something dangerous is afoot. Let's have a look at the arrow for a moment. Now there's a lot to think about with the arrow, so bear with me, guys. So typical symbols of an arrow would be these. I'm just going to draw a few out for you to give you a couple of examples, okay? Okay, so there are some of the symbols you might get with an arrow. Now, generically speaking, an arrow can represent direction or a flow of energy in or out. So if an arrow was pointing towards the east represents future. So when we're looking at doing wax readings as an example, you would have north, south, east, west, okay? Now west represents the past, so if wax flowed towards the west, represents the past influences, past blockages or traumas that are causing issues. And the east represents the future, looking towards the future and aiming towards future goals, and that things will shift and change as designed. So east direction is usually a positive outcome. You can also apply this to the elements, north being earth, east being air, south being fire, and west being water. And then those have extra energies in witchcraft, which then help you interpret the flow of wax. Now you can do the same thing with arrows. So if an arrow is pointing a direction, it can have an elemental influence, but it can also represent what they represent. So if an arrow is facing the east, pointing towards the east, as east represents air, it's knowledge, it's wisdom, clarity, understanding, communication. If it was facing south, so pointing down, you could take that to be the element of fire. So passion, drive, will, focus, desire, sexual energies. All of those are present when you think about the direction an arrow can flow. Okay? So, generic meanings of the arrow based on the direction they go. So if your arrow is going that way, we've already discussed it can represent east and the element of air and the future, okay? But an arrow generically, when it's facing towards the east, on its own, its true meaning is protection and defense, okay? Because this is pointing towards the right, and an arrow pointing right is all about protection and defense. If an arrow is pointing towards the left, this is about warding off evil. If you have two arrows, well, I've done it here, where you've got one pointing one direction, the other pointing the other, it doesn't matter whether they're pointing up, down, or left, right. That represents different directions, meaning war, battle, aggression, conflict, or a conflict of interests, two energies colliding, and instead of coinciding and going, naturally aflow together, they are direct opposition to each other. So that's why we get conflict in those negative energies. If you get two arrows like this, where they cross, that represents friendship and unity. Allies, it represents two forces coming together and working together, as does this. So if you get two arrows that are like that, represent two forces working together, moving in perfect harmony together. If you get an arrow where the tip is more like a diamond, so like that, this represents toughness, courage, hard as a diamond. And then the classic symbol, heart being pierced by an arrow. So this is quite literally a symbol of love, unity, of bonding, pairing, commitment, marriage, two loving people coming together in a loving union. And it always represents some energies of love, not as simple as allies coming together or, two opposing forces on a battlefield coming together. So it's not like that. This is definitely a symbol purely of love. So two people who care about each other, are attracted to each other, come together in that perfect union, okay? So that could be a starting point for a sigil. It could be something you incorporate in a love sigil, or if you're creating a sigil to attract your perfect partner, that could be something you want to incorporate. So those are the first sets of symbols, guys. So try to think about how you would utilize these. So straight away with that one, the plus sign, with it being about increase, that would be really good if you wanted to work on manifestation. If you combine that with a circle, you then incorporate the 4 elements, which is about balance. The circle itself represents spirit, so you're involving divinity as well. It's a great sign of balance and working with all the elements in the universe in harmony. So that's a way to layer it even further. So not only have you got the plus for increase and bringing something towards you, you've also got that energy of the 4 elements and the universe working with you on that task. So that's and that's just a starting point for your sigil. That could be the foundation or the container for your sigil, and then you build upon it from there. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, all of these symbols have multiple different purposes, the same as when you encounter herbs in magic or crystals. They all have multiple different purposes. In order for these to work correctly for you when you're designing a sigil, you have to tell it what you want it to do. So when you're combining the energies, you want to say, I'm using this because it represents this. And then you build upon it, designing your sigil. And then finally you say to yourself, this symbol means this. And then you're stating your intent. Okay, and then you take your sigil and then you would charge it, and then you would utilize it in your craft. And there's different videos for that, guys, so if you're interested in that, I can link that below as well. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this first instalment of symbols to add to your sigils. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and click the bell button so YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. And if you'd like to support me on any of my social media, you can do that through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course Patreon. And thank you very much for those who do choose to support me. I appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Blessed be.